Zack Snyder, love him or hate him, has undoubtedly a very distinct cinematic style. One that has provided an energy of epicness and virtual brutality akin to that of many contemporary video games. This methodology, I believe, has been a little bit tarnished by the recent oversaturation and indulgence of that style within the DC extended universe. Not to say these DC films don't have their moments, they certainly do. I just think that Snyder has wasted his full potential sticking with that one series for so long. From his producing work on Wonder Woman and Suicide Squad, to his directing of Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel, his presence has been looming over almost the entire DCEU, and it's really put his potential creativity into a corner. A problem that I believe could be fixed if Snyder took his talents to the video game movie market. Now, before I discuss the route that Snyder should be taking, I think we need to address what's not working and why he desperately needs to hit the reset button. Upon accepting the director's chair for 2013's Man of Steel, he immediately had an almost impossible task to tackle. Make Clark Kent and Superman both work. Kent had to feel somewhat relatable and human. Opposite that, Superman had to beam off a godly ray that would inspire awe in the entire audience. It sorta worked in film in the past, and Snyder nearly got the latter, but the difference between Kent and Supes is sadly merely just the glasses in this universe. Something that I think Snyder does well in his films is conveying a fantasy veil over the world we're watching, utilising a lot of digital camera movements to embrace the more fantastical nature of the films, allowing us to escape our own for a couple of hours. This, however, occasionally does a disservice to the source material of these DC characters. He's perpetually stuck in his balancing act with grounding our heroes and also making them feel powerful. The lack of established physics in his DC fight scenes disconnects the viewer and makes everything feel like blunt objects smashing together, rather than a symphonic dance perfectly conducted in a cinematic manner, like his Hot Gates battle sequence in 300. Hell, even the whole godly figure of Superman was sorta done better in another DC film of his, 2009's Watchmen, with the power showcase and how the world sort of feared the capabilities of Dr. Manhattan. But I digress. There are numerous positive and negative angles to discuss within Snyder's DCverse, but that's not what we're here to look at. I believe that Zack Snyder could potentially be the man to make the first actually great video game movie, and he doesn't even really need to change up his whole style that much. There are a plethora of really average video game movies. Like, most of them are aggressively okayish, and I feel like that's due to a lack of style. They often have to appeal to both the game's core fanbase and general audiences to make a profit, a similar balancing act that Zack Snyder had to deal with for his DC movies. However, I think Snyder and his, dare I say it, SnyderVision could be a useful tool in sprucing up the video game movie genre. In a genre filled with flat and drab looking action, uninspired dialogue, and characters that are really just shells of their former selves in the source material, an infusion of stylized action and visual prowess would certainly shake things up in the right direction. Snyder's style of filming and writing often leans into these hero moments. He likes to spread out certain moments that are almost built to be iconic, often used in promotional material, as his big selling point is his ability to visually produce moments that provide awe towards our heroes. I mean, almost the entire runtime of Watchmen is stylistically shot to make most scenes have their own big moment, exaggerating the action, setting, or even the atmosphere. These moments can sometimes be cancelled out by dull British action scenes or inconsequential dialogue, like in Batman vs Superman. However, I think it could be used as a powerful tool, one that could provide an aspect that movies have never been able to do when adapting from video games. When playing most games, you're given control of a character in some unusual new world, and naturally we as inquisitive beings want to explore and learn about this unfamiliar setting. Atmosphere is often a driving point of some of the best games out there, with music and the contextual backdrop being pillars of providing the player a guide into the tone of the piece. Making a video game adaptation takes that one big interactivity factor out, and hasn't really successfully found a solution to this void. Snyder's style of creating tension, building character and evolving atmosphere through these moments could be utilised in a similar manner, instead of having the controls, score or perfectly designed level layout to convey this feeling. We could have Snyder bridge the gap by providing us with these moments, with the assistance of score, in which Snyder has been very good at curating to really embrace the world we're entering and understand the character's motivations just a little bit more, without actually having full control of the protagonist. For instance, in 300 we witness a lot of speed ramping and frame manipulation used to amplify the aggression of our heroes. Beyond the mythology of Spartans that we've come to as a society, we can clearly see the professionalism of these warriors, that they're fighting for their lives, filled with anger towards their invaders, and that they're clever enough to know when to work as a unit, and when they'd be best to combat their threats more directly. This may be a small detail, but with the score and visual style of Snyder, these moments can enhance a viewer's experience and immerse them into the protagonist's world without a single line of dialogue being said. These character moments are pivotal to conveying the tone of Snyder's work, and allow him to develop characters through stylistic visuals, often taking our heroes out of a realistic time frame or setting, allowing the viewer to enter the mind and get closer to understanding the character, a technique that is frequently utilised in gaming. Although there are a number of differences between cinema and video games, both are intensely visual mediums, obviously, and as such, the Zack Snyder approach to translating a video game to the cinematic format would allow for a lot of strong emotional beats to be paralleled. Not only that though, but Snyder's mentality towards adaptation would be a welcome change to the more cavalier approach that a lot of executives demand from video game movies. With his experience from remaking Dawn of the Dead, which is a solid zombie flick with some hilarious use of digital effects that you should totally watch if you haven't seen it already, adapting a number of comic books like Frank Miller's 300 to the big screen, and of course his use of comic panels as source references for his storyboarding makes it clear that authenticity and tone were of paramount importance to him when adapting. During a 2008 Comic-Con panel, he stated intent to keep a strong dialogue between his team and the developers of the video game based on his Watchmen movie adaptation, citing the importance to hold the integrity of the original vision whilst providing a personal twist. I personally never played Watchmen The End Is Nigh prequel game, but I did complete the 300 tie-in game, March to Glory. Although it mostly just followed the film's action set pieces with some bloating to add game time, and the game was a fairly standard mid-2000s movie tie-in action game, I do remember my time in it fondly, with the latter stages of the game challenging a young Stally, forcing me to adapt and learn a number of combos to outweigh bosses. Something that I specifically remember from the game was how it translated the blood drunk scene from the film into a special battle skills mechanic. You'd build up your blood meter by slaughtering enemies, with more complicated combos building it up faster. Once it hits a certain amount, you can activate one of 4 potential battle skills, depending on how much you've upgraded. I think this is a prime example of how a video game mechanic that's fairly standard can translate the same energy from the film. And guess what? It could be reverse engineered to work both ways. A lot of Snyder's action sequences act like our heroes are building up combos to allow for a special meter to be filled up, and then when the timer's right, release a finisher. Hell, even in the Snyder cut, the battle against Steppenwolf at the end of the film was basically the gang building up their special meter and finishing him off like a super move from the Injustice fighting games. His structure when writing his films is also directly inspired by his gaming experience. Take Sucker Punch, which Snyder has stated he wanted to follow the classic Joseph Campbell's monomyth that so many games and films like to follow, having the characters fetch a set of boons in return for numerous rewards, taking away what he describes as the athletic mental exercises of gaming, but still laying out an adrenaline-boosting roller coaster on a specific set of tracks, guiding the experience. Snyder has admitted that whilst writing Sucker Punch and even other projects that he often interlaces his experience with supplements of video game breaks. After he's done a couple of pages of a script or a storyboard, he'd hop off for a game of Gears of War or something, which has obviously had an impact on how his mind works and how he presents the action on screen. Both Snyder and a number of video games utilize snap zooms to convey a sense of urgency within the actions of our characters, along with digitally enhanced high-contrast imagery to guide focus, allowing for a romanticized and fantastical experience, something that a lot of mid-2000s video games were leaning on. Snyder has described the difference between video games and movies coming down to the adrenaline you receive from your control and your choices. But if a movie can fill that void with genuine emotion and provide stimulating tension, it can work on the same level. His stylistic choices lean into this heavily already, and tend to rely overtly on digital imagery to enhance and often exaggerate the scene to new heights. Something that I can't really say many other filmmakers do effectively. His long takes, enhanced by speed ramping, allow for a similar effect to how video games that are larger in scope allow the player to take in everything that's going on, usually in one smooth motion. Opposing typical action editing that many video game movies are guilty of crawling back to, which revolves around choppily cutting up the action from a number of different angles, which when done poorly can seriously disconnect the viewer from the characters and break any immersion established. Snyder's stylistic choices lend themselves towards encompassing the video game experience, whilst still telling a very cinematic story. So, if you were to hypothetically see this video and decide that I'm right, what video game movie project that's already been announced would he be perfect to flex his muscles in the genre? Although updates for it have been scarce of late and originally announced in 2013 to be helmed by Fede Alvarez, the Dante's Inferno movie adaptation would blend perfectly with a large number of Snyderisms. The gore and the elaborate combat moves from the game would translate beautifully through Snyder's typical approach to action. With just really one hero to focus on, the balance of power within the character is a lot easier to manage compared to, say, the Justice League. And of course, Snyder's love for shoehorning in any biblical allegory he can to his projects would feel right at home within Dante Alighieri's epic descent into hell. Dante's Inferno, in my eyes, is certainly a project that Zack Snyder could have a lot of fun with, and potentially produce the first properly great video game movie. However, with such a mild pulse in the project, I doubt it'll ever come to fruition over a decade after the game first released. There is another though. Another mythic tale filled with a ton of religious references. A game movie that wasn't actually that long ago announced. The God of War movie. With Gerard Butler, still perhaps most famous for his depiction of King Leonidas in Snyder's 300, reportedly attached for the lead role of Kratos, I don't think it would be totally out of left field for Zack Snyder to be linked to the project. Their experience working together would certainly come in handy for another collaboration. Not only that, but a focus on Kratos himself gradually taking off a list of gods would provide a vast array of opportunities for Snyder to take full advantage of his skill set and make every boss fight feel stylistically unique, important, and life-changing for Kratos. At the end of the day, if Snyder ever does work on a video game movie adaptation, it's likely going to be something that hasn't been publicly announced yet. And, let's be honest, probably a Warner Brothers property considering his commitment to working with them. And most of them are already established properties adapted to the video game format, so it'll be interesting to see how Snyder's next project turns out. The Army of the Dead trailer certainly has some promise, and is giving me some very strong Dead Rising crossed with Spec Ops The Line vibes, which is a very interesting combo, so we'll see if it plays out. After watching the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, I will say the DC Extended Universe has been salvaged a respectable amount, and whatever their plans with the series end up being, it has a solid foundation for a potential second wind. However, I stand by the point that Zack Snyder is only limiting himself by sticking with DC movies. I think he'd thrive in the video game movie market and potentially make his best work yet. Snyder's style may not always be the most eloquent, but there is certainly a place at the cinematic table for him. So tell me what you guys think. Is Zack Snyder doing his best he possibly can with DC and the many extended universe films, or should he do more solo films, like I guess Army of the Dead is technically a solo film even though it could be linked to Dawn of the Dead, his remake, or do you think the video game movie market could be a strong avenue for him? Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below because I'll be down there in and amongst the conversation and I'd love to hear what you guys think. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. My name is Andrew or Stally111. Make sure to drop a like, drop a comment and subscribe if you've not done so already. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.